Today we'll be working in my workbook called Elijah. Now, this is one of my very first workbooks, so it isn't as polished as the workbooks that I did later, but it still has some information that's worth reading about. In this case, it's about a person, not a series of scriptures. And so I discovered Elijah through all of First Kings and Second Kings as where he located. So this book is on the person Elijah, not so much the scriptures like that. We have completed the first first 6 chapters. And now we have chapter 7 to do. The first 6 chapters, Elijah is first come on the scene when he tells that there's a famine. And after God sends him up to Zarephath to stay with a widow for a while. At the end of the famine, then he starts coming back into Israel and he meets Ahab, King Ahab. This is the time of the divided kingdom. And he tells King Ahab that rain will come, but to invite all the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth to Mount Carmel because they're going to have a competition, so to speak. So then we have that famous competition on Mount Carmel between Elijah and the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth. And of course, Elijah wins and he kills 450 prophets of Ashtoreth. And he thinks at that point everybody's going to follow God, but it doesn't quite happen that way. But he does, the rain starts to come, but unfortunately, Jezebel, who's Ahab's wife, is wanting to kill Elijah because of what he's done, killing the prophets of Baal and Ashtoreth. So Elijah runs, and the angels feed him food that he's able to eat and then be able to walk for 40 days and 40 nights. He goes to Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, and he stays up in the caves there, and he's very depressed because he feels like no matter what he's done or what he can do, nobody is willing to change their mind about God. And he's very depressed. And God tries to get him to move, and he's unwilling to move. Finally, God says, okay, we will elect someone to take your place. And at the end of this, we see him putting his cloak on Elijah, who is to be Elijah's replacement. Elisha and Elijah. In my chapters here, I do a distinct difference in the sound. I call Elisha, so that you can tell the difference, but really it's Elisha and Elijah. So then we have the side story where King Ahab tries to take the vineyards of Naboth, and he takes them, and then Elijah gets really upset at what he did. So now we're down to the death of Ahaziah. So let's go ahead there. The death of Ahaziah, 2 Kings 1:2-17. Ahaziah had fallen through the lattice of his upper room in Samaria and injured himself. So he sent messengers saying to them, go and consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, to see if I will recover from this journey. Baal-zebub, which of course is a idol versus an actual versus God himself. And Ahaziah was the leader of the country. So I'm sure that God was not happy with what Ahaziah was looking for. Find Ekron, find Samaria, make a line from Ekron to Samaria. Okay. Ekron. Aha. So we got Samaria to Ekron. Ekron is just inside the border of what region? Philistia. Based on the scale on the bottom of the map, how far do you think Ekron is from Samaria? I would say about 50 miles. As the crow flies. Obviously, there would have been roads and stuff he would have to have taken. And who is Ahaziah? 1 Kings 22, 51, 53. Ahaziah, son of Ahab. So he's the son of the king that we had seen in the prior chapter. Became king of Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned over Israel for 2 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord because he followed the ways of his father and mother, Jezebel, and of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. He served and worshipped Baal and aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, just as his father had done. So he's a bad king, just like his father was. Who's Baal-zebub? The name Baal-zebub means Lord of the High House, and it was worshipped as an idol by the Philistines. Many of God's believers changed the name to Beelzebub, which means Lord of the Flies. Beelzebub is used in the New Testament to mean Satan. What is the relationship of Ahab and Jezebel to Ahaziah? Ahaziah is their son. How long did Ahaziah reign over Israel? 2 years. Was Ahaziah a good or bad king? Bad king. What god did Ahaziah worship? Baal-zebub. Which country worshiped Baal-zebub? The Philistines. In the New Testament, who was Beelzebub? The devil. Now back to the scriptures. But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, go up and meet the messengers of the king of Samaria and ask them, is it because there's no God in Israel that you're going off to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore, this is what the Lord says, you will not leave the bed you were lying on. You will certainly die. So Elijah went. Who was Elijah supposed to meet? The messengers of the king of Samaria. What does he tell the messengers to say to Ahaziah? Because you will not leave the bed that you're lying on. He will certainly die. Because he, he's more interested in Baal-zebub than God itself. When the messengers returned to the king, he asked them, why have you come back? A man came to us, they replied, and he said to us, go back to the king who sent you and tell him this is what the Lord says. Is it because there's no God in Israel that you're sending messengers to consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore, you will not leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die. King asked them, what kind of man was it who came to meet you and told you this? They replied, he had a garment of hair and a leather belt around his waist. The king said it was Elijah the Tishbite. What was the description the messengers give to the king of the man who came to them? He had a garment of hair and a leather belt around his waist. Who did the king conclude it was? Elijah. Now Elijah had conversations with Ahaziah's father, Ahab, many times, but he never talked to Ahaziah personally. What do you think Ahaziah is going to do at this point? Accept the word of the prophet, resend the messengers to Ekron, or attempt to kill Elijah? Well, I doubt he's going to accept the words of the prophet. He's probably going to resend the messengers, and he's now going to attempt to kill Elijah, I think. Then he sent to Elijah a captain with his company of 50 men. The captain went up to Elijah, who was sitting on the top of the hill, and said to him, man of God, the king says, come down. Elijah answered the captain, if I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. The fire fell from heaven and consumed the captain and his 50 men. At this, the king sent to Elijah another captain with his 50 men. The captain said to him, "Man of God, this is what the king says. Come down at once." "If I'm a man of God," Elijah replied, "may fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men." Then the fire of God fell from heaven and consumed him and his 50 men. So the king sent a third captain with 50 men. This third captain went up and fell on his knees before Elijah. "Man of God," he begged, "please have respect for my life and the lives of these 50 men, your servants. See, fire has fallen from heaven and consumed the first two captains and all their men. But now have respect for my life." The angel of the Lord said to Elijah, "Go down with him. Do not be afraid of him." So Elijah got up and went down with him to the king. So how many men were killed? 100 men plus two captains. How did they get killed? Fire came down from heaven. How did the third captain save his men's lives? He bowed down to Elijah and he treated him with respect. Based on God's statement to Elijah, do you think this captain will protect Elijah from harm? Yes, indeed. He told the king, "This is what the Lord says. Is it because there's no God in Israel for you to consult that you have sent messengers to consult Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Because you've done this, you will never leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die." So he died, according to the word of the Lord that Elijah had spoken. What was the reason that King Ahaziah was going to die? Because he did not consult God. He consulted an idol to see if he's going to get better. How long was Ahaziah's reign? 2 years. Do you think Elijah got out of the palace alive? Yes, because people were scared of him. So that's the end of this chapter. Yeah, I guess it is. So I hope you enjoyed it.